As you can see, the Capri is fuel injected, and I was originally using the original tank with an internal fuel injection fuel pump, in-tank fuel pump, but didn't like that for a number of reasons. That's the original tank. The hole at the top is where the fuel pump was mounted, and in order to prevent the fuel slosh, what I did is I got some wiffle balls, which I can get one out here. Nope, can't get one out. Okay, not to worry. Just look up wiffle balls on the internet and put them in all around the fuel pump. And the wiffle balls are like golf balls, but they're hollow and they've got holes in them, and that prevents the fuel from sloshing back and forth as rapidly as it would if it was just an open tank. So that's one thing. Where the tank or where the fuel pump was positioned is about the only place where I realistically could position it, and when we went to fill the tank up, we had to put 2 gallons in before the gauge started to register. So there's 2 gallons of fuel at the bottom of the tank that the pump couldn't access. So that was a problem. The other thing, and probably the biggest thing reason that I decided to change it, is this plate right here is a replacement for the pickup that was on the original tank, and I really didn't like the fact that that's at the bottom of the tank. And at some future date, you can be guaranteed that gasket's going to dry out, and then you're going to have a gas leak, and that becomes a real problem. So, what are we replacing it with? What we have is a tank here, and I'll put the link at the bottom of the video for the tank. It's 30 inches long, 12 inches wide, and 9 inches deep, and it holds 15 US gallons. It's not an in-tank, or it's not an EFI tank, but that's easily fixed. And I will go into detail on how I've done that. So for now, this tank was, I think it was $217 or something. It's not expensive at all. It's an aluminum tank. It's a sealed unit. It's got already pickups, but my fuel pump has its own pickups and return, etc. So I'm not going to use those other than the return. I will use the return, or sorry, the vent. The vent will work just fine. So. Yeah, that's it, and I'll come back with another couple of minutes of video here as we go. So, all right, there you are. Okay, so I've got the tank here. I'm just going to show you the measurements. This is all for replacing the OEM tank in a Capri. Particularly when you're running fuel injection, you need to put in an in-tank pump. So I'm going to give you the measurements, tell you what I did with the tank, and then we'll come back and I'll show you the bracketry and so on and so forth. So this is the tank. It was bought by DNA, or from DNA Motoring. There's a link. There will be a link at the bottom of the YouTube video. As you can see, tank's 29.5 by 12, and it is 9 inches deep. 2 things I had to do. One, the fuel sender, which is a 0 to 90 ohm sender, as it's delivered, the gauge float is over here. And as you can see, I needed to put the fuel pump, the in-tank pump, in this end, because the filler's down here. So what I did is I just took this and turned it around. There's only one of these 3 openings here that have a tube that goes down to the bottom, and that's the pickup. So the other 2 are just openings, one for the vent, one for the return. So I capped them off, and the float now runs over this way, and it works 100%. I've tried it with the tank upside down, right side up, etc. The in-tank fuel pump is here. Feed, return, and vent. So it's self-contained, so I don't need these three. And the fuel filler is going to get a hose that goes from here to the actual original filler neck location. So that's all going to fit like normal. Before I'm done here, I will show you what it looks like when it's installed. And the next thing is I'm going to bring out the brackets and give you the measurements and show you that as well. Okay? So on the mounts for the tank, this is the bottom mount. When you take out the original tank from the Capri, what you get, or what you end up with, is the four bolts, top and bottom, two top, two bottom. The two bottom ones are on a bit of a, I'll call it a stand-up. And after much puzzling, what I determined to do is take a piece of angle iron, and as you can see here, I've cut out the top so that the stand-up can go here, and the piece of angle iron overall is 33 inches, and you can see I did two holes here. Looks like center to center is 31 3/4 on the bolt holes. So that's the distance between the original OEM equipment gas tank lower mount bolt holes is 31 3/4. So, and then on the top of this, I welded these just a piece of bar stock that let me get this to stand up here. There we go. That is from the top of the bar to the top of to the bend is approximately 7 1/4, and this is on the right side. It's roughly 5 1/2 to the pinch bolt here, and at this end it's roughly 7 1/4 by same thing, 5 1/2 to the bend up for the pinch bolt. So that's the bottom. So that's at the bottom of the back. The tank is in here, comes out, and I'll show you the other mount. Alright, so this is the front of the tank. As you can see, I got a piece of 2 inch square tube. It's thick wall, it's way more than I needed, but it's what I had. On the bottom, because the way the floor of the Capri goes, it's higher at the back of the trunk than it is at the front. The trunk floor is about 2 1/2 inches lower than the mount point for the tank, where the tank rests on the floor at the back. So what I ended up doing, like I say, is a piece of 2 inch square tube, and at the bottom I have some 1/2 inch rubber isolation mounts. They're bolted on the inside, and they bolt through the trunk floor to the outside. And the overall length of this, once again, is on the front is 29 inches, which basically puts it just right to the ends of the tank, so the tank is fully supported across here. The top, these brackets here are from where they're welded on to the top to the bend is 10 3/4, and then it goes out 4 5/8, and then it kicks up an inch for the pinch bolt, and it's pretty much the same on the other side. It's 10 3/4, 4 3/4 ish these are not real critical. You just need to leave yourself enough room that you can attach the back and then squeeze them together, and that pinches the tank in place. So that's the front with the measurements. And these bolts are just 2-inch bolts, or 2.5s, I guess. What are they? Yeah, they're 2.5-inch bolts. So the separation between the back upright and the front upright is about 2 inches, or let's put it this way: it's sufficient that when I do the bolt up or the nut up, it's going to pinch the tank in place. What I have here is pond liner. You can buy this at any garden center in different rolls, different widths, etc. And that's just going to go underneath the tank and separate the tank from the metal. So just so you don't get any galvanic action between the steel and aluminum, and it works as a bit of an isolation as well. And the same thing, I've got little strips that go here on the top, and really they only touch on the pinch point right at the corner, but that's fine. They're serving their purpose. That's what you want them to do. So I'm going to install the tank, and just to give you an idea what it all looks like when it's in place, yeah, and we'll go from there. Okay, so this is the tank in situ. You can see just at the back there, that's the bottom mount bolted to the stand-up for the OEM tank, and it's the same on the other side. On the front here, you can see there's the 2-inch square tubing, and I don't know if you'll be able to see it or not. I'll get my hand out of the way. You can see the 1/2-inch rubber standoff on the floor there. So, as you can I'll stand up here. So, that gives you an idea. It protrudes a little bit more into the trunk space than the original tank did, but you still have a usable trunk. So, and we have a 57-liter tank instead of a 10-liter tank, and in the case of a fuel-injected system, we have access to all of the fuel that's in the tank, as opposed to only 8 gallons in the OEM tank with the in-tank fuel pump installed. So that's it. I will put links to the tank supplier, and the last thing I got to do is just source a fuel hose, and I can update that on the website when I get that figured out. The fuel hose, if you can go down here, see if I can get some light in the subject. Okay, so the fuel hose goes from the top of the tank a 90 degree, and then over, and then a 45, and it attaches to the filler. The one thing I had to do on the filler tube is cut away the outer, because there's an inner and outer, and the outer wasn't going to work. It was just too big. So that's how I solved that problem. So there you go.